You know how a couple of fender benders can leave you skint? A medical bill here, a couple of bounced check fees there, a rent check that went south because of the fees, and a notice to quit that followed because of the bounce. I went from just about managing, though not exactly rolling in it, to kipping in my car within a month. And I count myself lucky, mate. At least I have a motor and a job. Which is why I'm telling you this. I pull the graveyard shift at a greasy spoon that's open 24/7. You might have heard of it, might not. They never close. They're always on the lookout for staff. And they don't really give a toss about your past. It was the dead of night. When it's so late, it's early. The diner was deserted, so I was leaning against the counter, tucking into a bowl of chili with grated cheese and chopped onion while I was having a gander at other jobs on my mobile. Brucey, the cook, was outside having a fag, and the only other person in the diner with me was a young pregnant girl named Chantel, who was texting her nan something or other nervously. I'm gonna have to knock off early. My nan's saying I need to come get the little un. I hate it when she does this, but I can't afford a babysitter either. Chantel was all right. But like everyone else here, she was having a rough time. Her bloke was in the nick about 100 kilometers away, and part of why she worked here was to top up his phone credit and have enough dosh for regular visits. He was in there for manslaughter or something. But we don't really chew the fat about our personal lives. So I wasn't sure. Brucey was the cook, and he'd sneak out for a durry at every chance he got, which, when the restaurant was empty, meant a lot of chances. He'd wander back if a punter walked in, but there was no point bothering him. Hey, no worries. I'll keep things ticking over. Go grab your kid. Thank you.
You're a star!
I owe you one. Don't sweat it. See you Wednesday. She legged it out the door, and I didn't think much of it. I heard her say goodbye to Brucey, and then her car engine struggle as she drove off. I had another 4 hours left on my shift, and with any luck, it would stay this quiet. Of course, seeing as I'm here rabbiting onto you, you know I wasn't that lucky. The door chimed and a family of 4 walked in. Mom, Dad, boy, and girl. I clocked the car park. I didn't spot a car, but I just figured they might have parked around the back. It's funny, but I don't remember what they looked like. But I do remember what they were wearing because it was some real Ozzie and Harriet. Leave it to Beaver kind of caper. The dad had on a blue checkered button-up shirt with a white singlet underneath and khaki strides. His hair was perfectly slicked back like one of those old Brylcreem ads. The mum wore a red gingham dress with a flared skirt, petticoat, and nipped-in waist. Her hair, too, was flawless, straight out of an old Betty Crocker commercial. The little girl had her hair in 2 bunches with yellow ribbons and was wearing a pink top and blue shorts. The boy had a perfect quiff and wore a blue shirt and red shorts. I felt uneasy. They looked perfect, but they felt off. Brucey came back inside, took one long gander at the family as they settled into a booth, then went through the swinging doors into the back without a word. Cheeky. G'day? Folks, I said as I plopped down the laminated menus. Can I get you anything to wet your whistle? Each member of the family clasped their hands over their menu and turned my way with a smile. 4 glasses of milk. Please, said the dad, his voice all folksy, like something from an old sitcom. Everything looks so delicious, said the mum cheerfully, without even glancing at the menu. I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen adults order milk, especially at that hour. Thank you, the dad said when I plonked down their glasses. Nobody had moved a muscle. Their posture and faces stuck in the same position as they watched me pour their drinks and head back. I wiped my mitts on my apron and tried a smile. Are you all ready to order? The 4 of them glanced towards my name tag in unison, and I was suddenly chuffed most of it was hidden beneath my hoodie. We're waiting for someone, said the mum in a sing-song voice. They all turned to face each other, small, identical smiles on their faces, condensation from their untouched glasses making 4 tiny puddles. It wasn't right for kids to be that quiet, or for anyone to be that still. To be honest, it wasn't normal to wait for someone at that hour either. I pretended to wipe down the counters. You're not supposed to leave guests on their own, and I didn't know what to do. Are you sure I can't get you anything? I asked after a couple of distressingly silent minutes. We told you we're waiting, one of the kids hissed. I got a fright and dropped the cloth. That wasn't a kid's voice. All 4 pairs of eyes fixated on me again, but this time, nobody was smiling. My heart hammered in my ears, and I could have sworn they heard it too. Righto. I laughed nervously, my voice a bit too high. Suddenly, out the corner of my eye, I saw Brucey waving like a loon behind the swinging doors. trying to get me to join him in the back, relieved to have an excuse to scarper. I backed away slowly, something deep in my most basic brain telling me not to turn my back on them. Sod the rules. I couldn't be out there alone with them a second longer. I'd barely opened the swinging doors when he yanked me all the way in. "Listen," he whispered urgently, his grip tight on my arm. "Those people out there aren't actually people." I glanced back through the little window in the swinging door. He cut me off. "What I don't have is time to explain. You see that bag of salt?" He nodded towards a bloody great bag of pure rock salt I'd somehow never spotted since working here. "Pour a line at the front. Make sure it's far enough back that the swinging door won't break the line. It needs to go all the way from one wall to the other. Pour extra if you're not sure." "I'm confused, and I'm bricking it." "Just pour." He picked up his own large bag of salt and started making a wide circle, big enough to fit us both. Looking behind him, I could see there was already a similar salt line at the back, stretching from wall to wall. I had no idea what was going on, but I'd never seen Brucey anything other than pretty laid back and chill during my time here, and that was enough to make me listen. As I poured, I peeked through the round window in the swinging doors and spotted the family still sitting there. They still hadn't budged. "This is properly creepy," I muttered under my breath. Once my line of salt had been poured and double-checked, Brucey pointed to the inside of the circle and put a finger to his lips. Tiptoeing to the wall, he carefully opened the fuse box. Then, taking a deep breath, he flicked off the switches, plunging the whole restaurant into darkness and killing the lights outside. In the next instant, he'd legged it to join me in the middle of the circle. A heartbeat later, I heard the most ungodly screeching from the dining area. I clamped my hands over my ears, but it was no use. It was like the sound waves were made of shattered glass. My skin felt like it was being peeled off. My eardrums screamed. I started to fall over and stopped suddenly partway down. Brucey had twisted the collar of my shirt around his hand. I'd almost fallen outside the circle. Another screech washed over me, and I sobbed in confusion and pain. My muscles clenched into knots as I fought an instinctive urge to leg it. Brucey's grip tightened, keeping me grounded. Just then, the swinging doors flew open, and a churning inky mass slithered and slopped its way inside. You'd think it would be too dark to see anything, but there were so many mouths, so many teeth, so many eyes, the space filled with the reek of rot and tar. This was the family. I retched and clamped my mitts over my mouth to keep the spew down. The mass glided and spilled its way up to the very edge of the salt line and stretched horizontally along its entire length. I copped on why there was a circle now. If there'd been the slightest gap in the line or between the line and the wall, it'd have slithered its way across. My eyes burned the longer I looked. I felt something warm drop onto my hand. I thought it was tears. It was a nosebleed. As the screams got louder, Brucey yelled, "Close your eyes!" I clamped my hands over my ears, screwed my eyes shut, and sobbed. Eventually, I don't know how long, the screaming stopped. I must have passed out straight after, because when I came to, it was dawn. Every muscle and bone in my body ached when I stood up. My face was covered in dried tears, snot, and blood. Brucey was red-eyed and a mess. He was using the special broom, the one with "Do Not Use" scrawled on it in Sharpie on the handle to sweep all the salt into a big dustpan with the same message. The salt had turned a smoky blue and smelled like sulfur and petrol. Maybe it was the daylight. Maybe it was surviving the scariest night of my life. But when I spoke, my voice was surprisingly calm, even though it sounded like I'd chewed and swallowed shards of glass. "I'm gonna wash my face. Then I'm gonna make us coffee. And then you're gonna tell me what the bloody hell that was." He nodded, mumbled, "Yeah," and kept sweeping. I was half tempted to turn the sign at the door to closed, but it would be my luck if the gaffer appeared out of nowhere when I did. Besides, the place was deserted. Once he was done sweeping, he washed his hands and joined me. I poured him a mug of the best coffee I've ever tasted. He lit up a cigarette and we looked at each other across an empty table. Despite the commotion, the diner was shipshape, like nothing had ever happened. What was that? He took a long drag, as if weighing up whether to tell me the truth or not. But after last night, it was too late to lie. They're called the family. I've never seen them before, but Carrie, the waitress before you and Chantel, worked here for a few years and said they rock up every now and then. He paused as if expecting me to say something. I took a long sip, and he carried on. The first clue was they didn't have a car. They just appeared, I don't even know from where, and walked in. The second is how they were dressed. Where did they come from? I don't know, but the story goes that a family went missing on the motorway decades ago, and when they came back they were that. And you lot didn't think to fill me in when I got hired? Would you have believed it? I suppose not. There's a reason the pay's decent. What about the salt? The lights? Look, I don't know all the ins and outs, and she didn't either, but before this place was built, apparently there were a lot more disappearances. People would come off at this exit because they thought they saw a sign for food or fuel, take a turn, and never be seen again. But now people just stop here, straight off the motorway and straight back on. But that means when the family gets peckish, they come here. Yeah, that's why you went straight to the back? Yeah, I needed to get cracking. And you switched off the light so nobody stops while they're here? Yeah. What about the salt? He went quiet. You saw why. Just then the door opened and a couple with a toddler walked in. A real family, clueless. We stopped talking. I took their order and Brucey fired up the grill. There was nothing else to do. This happened a few weeks ago, but I'm still working there. Head office gave us an extra bonus in our pay packet when the incident was reported, which got me into a cheap hotel with a proper bed and shower for a little while. I'm still sending out the CV, but nobody else has got back to me for an interview. I'm alive because of Brucey, but he's just been taken on as a screw at the prison and is off soon. I might delete this later, but I needed to bend someone's ear where nobody would know who I was or judge me. What do you reckon I should do?